Good afternoon. I'm Tracy Sinclair, and we are headed over to the Anchorage Police Department for a press conference. Here's Chief Sean Case.
You'll be able to find the video at anchoragepolice.com under the video release tab that we just added this morning. I want to take time to walk through what you will see in the video since this is our first release that we will be doing with body-worn cameras. As you click on the video and view it, you will start by seeing an intro of what the entire video looks like and what to expect, setting the context of the video and the call. You will then hear two different calls coming in from the public on the incident, and then dispatching that call for service. You will then see officers starting to arrive, and you're going to see a couple different videos. The videos that are clear and easy to see are either body-worn cameras or dash cam videos, and then we've also included videos that are privately owned by residents in the building, so like ring cam footage. Those videos are a little bit more grainy and in some cases blurry. That wasn't us doing any sort of redaction, that's just the quality of the actual video that takes place. The first video that you will see, and that's a body-worn camera video, are two supervisors on scene developing a response plan and splitting the officers into two teams. You'll see one team move up closer to the apartment. That team is going to be the arrest team or the rescue team, and then a second team will be directly in front of the apartment complex, and those are the officers that are designated to communicate, so that we only have one set of commands going to Mr. Handy. You will then see two body cam videos that will show the shooting. And we picked those two because it's as clear view as we have to show the completeness of the incident. After those two angles are shown, you will see a still camera that's a dash cam. There's no audio on the dash cam, so you'll just be able to see the incident directly in front of the apartment complex. It will show the best angle. And after that footage is complete, you'll see a split screen that will have 5 different video images at the same time. 4 of those images are from body cam. Those 4 images are from the officers that discharged their weapons. One of those videos is going to be completely black. That video is black because when the officer got out of his vehicle, he put on an external trauma plate over the top of his video camera, so his video was running, but you will not be able to see anything in that camera footage. It's important to note that although that's a good reason and a good explanation as to why that video camera is covered, as the officer hastily got out of the car so that he could put himself in a position to respond, the officer himself, after the incident, has taken upon himself to move his body camera in a different place just so that those trauma plates wouldn't impact the video footage in the future. So I think that's just a testament of how important this video footage is to our officers and taking it upon themselves to make sure that there's actual footage that's available. The last video that you will see is officers approaching the apartment complex. If you recall, the original call said that there was possibly shots fired inside the residence, so that created a need to get into the apartment as soon as possible after the shooting occurred, because we didn't know if there were victims or injuries or any of those sorts of things in the apartment. The video will stop right as the officers get to the threshold of the apartment. In the future, we are looking into, although producing this video, we'll continue to do this for officer-involved shootings in the future, we're also looking at releasing the remaining footage after it's been redacted. We didn't do that on this particular one, and probably not the next one, for 2 reasons. The first is we wanted to move on to the next video so that we can get this information out, and taking the time to redact it is we didn't want to delay it to get the main video out. And the second thing that we're looking at is the consequences of releasing all this footage. And by that I mean, if we would have ran this video longer, you'd see officers entering a residence where there are people in there and that have already been involved in a traumatic experience, and so how we impact them by releasing video footage from inside of their apartment where there are family members and children is a challenging thing for us to kind of work through. So we're trying to balance that transparency with protecting the privacy of those folks that are involved and trying not to put them in a position where we're re-traumatizing them. Real briefly, I want to talk about the remaining 4 officer-involved shooting incidents that we have and give you an idea on when you may see the videos. The second officer-involved shooting that we had was June 1st. That's the Caleb Bordakovsky video. We received a declination letter on that particular incident on July 9th, and that video we will be pending release on the criminal case. So if you recall, he was charged with homicide prior to officers being involved in a shooting, and so I spoke with the Attorney General's office yesterday, and they indicated that releasing that video would negatively impact the prosecution of that case. So we will hold the release of that video until there's some sort of conclusion. June 3rd was the Tyler May officer-involved shooting. We received a declination letter on July 19th in that incident. We are anticipating the release of that video, hopefully next week. And we're going through the process right now of notifying everybody that's involved in that video and ensuring that the family members can see the video footage prior to the release. June 19th is the Lisa Fortis Blair officer-involved shooting. We've not yet received a declination on that one, and there are no videos in that one. If you remember, that was the SWAT officer-involved shooting where there was no body cam video footage in that particular incident. And then July 8th, we had the Damian Dollison officer-involved shooting, which we have not received a declination letter for that as well. And Dollison's also charged with multiple felony counts, and so that video will also be delayed pending the resolution of that criminal case. In closing, I just want to point out that we've been talking about the release of these videos really in the abstract until today. And it's really important to point out that now that we are releasing these videos, there's going to be a lot of mixed emotions when we watch these videos, even if you have no connection to these videos. And so as a police department, we recognize that impact that has on our community. And I want to encourage everyone to take care of yourself in whatever way is meaningful to you, because we realize that the release of video and being transparent with our community is important. We also recognize the impact that it has. With that, I will take a couple questions. Yes, sir.
So with just a couple quick questions here for you. With the document, it says that Chris has been told to come out with his hands up and have empty hands. Is that captured within video at any point? Audio, video, is that captured? Police telling him to come out with hands up, empty hands?
So the question, and I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat the questions just so everyone's clear on it. The question is, were the commands that officers gave to Handy to raise his hands, was that in the video that we'll be releasing today? Yes, it will be.
And then just real quick about charging. It says at one point Chris came out charging. Can you kind of define what that, I mean, everything that we've seen has sort of been him walking to police. Can you sort of define what that means exactly?
So those words are, I'm going to assume that the words you're getting is from the declination letter? Okay. So the question is define what charging looks like, and those words were used in the declination letter. So some of the words that you saw in the declination letter are from the officers when they were providing statements. What the video is going to show is Handy coming from the apartment multiple times from multiple different angles. And I think you'll be able to see that there's how you define charging or walking briskly or with a purpose. There are some videos that clearly show that he's walking at a brisker pace than just an average walk. There's at one point where it appears he slows down a little bit, so you'll see different camera angles that will show kind of different perspectives on how quickly he was walking.
The Office of Special Prosecutions report notes that one sergeant declined to be interviewed and one officer was not interviewed during the investigation. Why is that?
So the 4 involved officers that discharged their weapons. Remember, at the early stages of this investigation, this is a criminal investigation that's taking place. It's not administrative. So they're just like any other person that's being investigated or interviewed in connection with a crime that potentially is being committed. That's the purpose of the investigation, is to determine whether or not the officers were criminal or not. And so they have constitutional rights not to participate or provide a statement or self-incriminate themselves, just like any other citizen. Later on, during the administrative process, they don't have that ability to decline an interview. They have to participate in that process. So, we had one involved officer that exercised that right.
So he was interviewed during internal processes?
That's correct.
What was the result of the internal investigation?
Internal investigation isn't completed yet. We're still conducting those interviews. We interviewed that particular officer first, so we wouldn't delay the release of the video.
Is there a timeline for when you will conclude that investigation?
We have timelines by contract, and so we have 45 days to complete the internal investigation and another 45 days to determine discipline if there is discipline warranted. But it's also important to note that the contents of the internal investigation is considered a confidential personnel document, and it's protected under state law.
Has the Handy family viewed the video?
I'm sorry, what?
Has the Handy family viewed the video?
Not all of them. Some of them, yes.
Why not all of them?
Their choice.
And we have time for about 2 more questions.
Based on the testimony of Handy's fiance, Harmony Stitt, it sounds like, based on that testimony, Chris sort of came out with an expectation of exactly what happened. Is it police's opinion that that's sort of what this situation was, where he instigated a situation that he was aware of the outcome?
So I'm going to leave that a little bit open to interpretation. And just to repeat that, because I think it's a great question, based on information that was in the declination letter, there were statements by Handy that potentially, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like we could anticipate that there would be a confrontation with law enforcement. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Your question? Okay. I think that's the tragedy in incidents like this. I think that information is something that we find out later on in the investigation, and in a dynamic scenario where we have seconds to resolve an incident that's rapidly evolving, and then you find out later on that there potentially was a motivation or a decision that at least it was interpreted by someone that was in the residence with him, that this was an encounter that would lead to a lethal encounter like this. That's tragedy. But I'll leave that open to the readers in how they interpret those statements.
And any questions from anyone who hasn't had a chance to?
Yeah, you talked about this administrative process for the officers and the personnel matter individually, but is there a wider post-mortem that the department does? Are there lessons learned from this video being released and going over these incidents?
What you're going to see from the police department is more of a broader look after these incidents occur. So we have the criminal that we all know about. We have the administrative investigation that we all know about. And what we're adding to that mix as we move forward is really looking at our training and our tactics that we use in these types of incidents. 20/20 hindsight's a wonderful thing. We can look at this from the perspective of we have all the time in the world to make these decisions, which is not the position the officers are in. And it allows us to look at our training and how our training impacts our performance on the street, and what our tactical approaches to these are. And it's important for us as we move forward that we take those two things into consideration so we can do everything we can to try to reduce lethal force encounters.
Yes, this is not related to body-worn cameras since we have you here. Can you speak to the abatement that's happening to 42nd and Fairbanks?
Correct, not related, but I'd be more than happy to give you a quick thought on it. So the abatement process that we're doing with this particular camp is different from what we've seen previously. I'm proud of that effort that we've put forth in this particular abatement process. The thing that is different is in the past we've posted and then we've abated, and that's kind of been the end of it, and people disappear. They go to wherever they're going to go, sometimes not having a place to go. What we've done this time is we started this abatement process with outreach teams going into the camp, connecting people to resources. I know there are teams that have placed several people in housing prior to this abatement process. Even today, we're working on that. So in the 72 hours, while we wait for that time frame to elapse, we're continuing to try to place people in housing so that they have a place to go. And last week, part of our overall crime suppression plan was also, Fairbanks was included in that because we've gotten criminal complaints. So we addressed some crime issues, we addressed housing issues, we addressed some victimization issues, and then at the end of the 72 hours, we'll move the rest of the folks out of the area.
And thank you very much for that. That'll be it today. Thank you.
And that was Police Chief Sean Case. The main focus of that press conference was, of course, to talk about the release of the body-worn camera footage for the case of Christopher Handy, the shooting of Christopher Handy. We weren't sure that was exactly what we were going to see when we first heard about this press conference, but that is what they have said. It's released. It is available on the Anchorage Police Department website. One of the things to point out is just about 10 o'clock this morning, the Office of Special Prosecutions announced their investigation into this case was completed, and they did conclude that the officers were legally justified in using of deadly force. Handy's family had already been alerted to this decision. In the report about the investigation, OSP said the officers used deadly force against Christopher Hanley in, quote, self-defense or, quote, defense of others, as is authorized by Alaska law. So that came out about an hour before this press conference was set to start. And as I said, the footage has been released. Much of what Chief Case talked about was explaining what people would see when they went to look at some of that footage. He also talked about some of the other officer-involved shootings and the footage that we might get from that. He said the footage of the June 1st shooting including Bordakovsky, that is delayed pending a criminal case. We're also looking at June 3rd, the shooting of Tyler May. That, he said, actually we're likely to expect next week to be released. In both of those cases, there have been declination letters indicating that they have not been found criminally charged with those shootings, the officers involved. And then June 19th, that is one where there was no footage involved. And then July 8th, that one is also part of a criminal case and we'll be waiting for that. There is an internal investigation going on with the situation around Christopher Handy's shooting, and we know they have a 45-day time limit to get that done, and then another 45 days to decide if there is any punishment included in that based on that administrative investigation. So we will have more tonight at 4, 5, 6, and 10 on Alaska's News Source. We are talking with family members and trying to gather as much information about this case as we go along. So please join us tonight on Alaska's News Source.